Welcome to this special episode of Ask Adam for the Love of Israel. Pastor Adam has it on his heart to share with us today regarding his most recent trip to Israel, and I'd love to hear what you have to offer today.
Well, thank you for tuning into our podcast today. Yeah, we'll answer questions like usual on the next one, but today Israel's fresh on me still. Just got back, been home about a week. And took another team of 52 individuals over there. And the genesis of today's podcast really was their responses to the things that they had seen and experienced. And I'm sitting here with Jessica, who went with me in 2019 with her husband. And so today I just kind of thought it would be nice to talk about the importance of going to Israel. I think it's more than just a trip. I would like to talk a little bit about it being a pilgrimage and what that entails. Also about emotionally what it means to walk where Jesus walked, to be where he was, not only Jesus, but where Elijah or David and so many of the other major biblical characters. Even a week ago, I was walking through the Damascus gate thinking, this is the same gate that Saul of Tarsus walked through on his way to Damascus. Little did he realize he left Jerusalem that day as Saul of Tarsus, but after that, he would become St. Paul, and how God transformed him. So there's a million of those, and it does affect us emotionally. And lastly, maybe spiritually, of what it means to see it with your own eyes and to experience everything. So that's kind of what I would like to talk about today.
That's wonderful. A couple of episodes ago, I remember you bringing up the fact that Jesus was not a Roman citizen, that he was limited in his geography to where he could go, and what an amazing opportunity that we have that it's contained, like you were saying, like everywhere that you were able to go, and you added, you'd been before, but this trip you went to Bethlehem, and you were able to go a little further than the trip that I was on. But how did the people 52. First of all, that's a big number. So kudos on all of you for being able to stick together and keep moving. And
No, it is. I even told them a few Sundays before we left that many of them are going on a trip and a tour, but for me, it's a business trip because I have convinced, we took 52 on this trip. I convinced 52 individuals to come halfway around the world and see a bunch of old sites and plunk down some pretty good money on this and take 10 days out of your calendar to experience something. This is not going on vacation. This is not laying on a beach. And I'm a fan of those things as well, but this is actually going to receive something. And I think that that's what is always my number one goal every time I've embarked on these.
Out of all of the trips that you've been on, I think we've lost count of how many times you've been, but you always say that you try to look at it in a new way each time that you go, and I think you bring home something different every time that you go. What stood out for you on this trip?
This trip we had our 2019 trip was so popular that I probably had about 13 or 14 repeaters, which really blesses me because 90% of the sites, you're going to see the biggies again. I always try to throw a new wrinkle. In the 2019, we went to the well where Gideon had them drink water, and then he left there with 300 fighting men. This trip, we went back to Bethlehem, which is in the West Bank, which is in modern-day Palestine, and I hadn't done that in about 20 years, but we did, and I really enjoyed it. So I always try to throw a new wrinkle, but like I said, for the most part, it's the same trip in the same order. And yet asking all of them, having breakfast or lunch with a few of them over the tour, why'd you come back? And I had so many say, because I had the time of my life the last time. And as somebody that leads tours, how many times I've been to Israel, I don't know. But my first 5 or 6 times, I was not leading a tour. I was either with my father on a ministry trip or part of a tour as just attending. And but for them to say that about the last time they were there, and I even had two or three of them say, "Well, let's go back. Let's, you know." It's funny whenever if you've ever been to a Seder dinner, which is a Passover dinner, the final prayer, and they always conclude the Seder with, is this time next year in Jerusalem. That's what is spoken with a glass of wine toasted. So that, I don't know, without even knowing, I didn't even know that till this past trip. Without knowing that, I've always kind of had that in my spirit that maybe this time next year, I could be back at that wall, or I could be walking through that gate, or be back at that Jordan River, or sailing on the Galilee. There's something inside of me that really, really enjoys it. And I feel closer to God in heaven when I'm there.
I remember in 2019 when we were there and we walked through, they had the golden lampstand. Is there a society that is dedicated to rebuilding the temple?
Yes, they're called the Temple Institute. They're in the Jewish quarter of Jerusalem. Actually, we went through that tour. That was a new wrinkle as well. I've been there before, but they've rebuilt all of the instruments according to the books of Moses, size, materials. I mean, they have taken it to the nth degree. So much so that they have a red heifer, and they keep 6 on site because when they get to a certain age, they're no longer would be, I don't know if they're cheeseburgers or I don't know. But anyway, that's not the point. But, and they keep every 3 years ordering new ones. And we found out that they've been ordering these red heifers from a ranch in San Antonio, Texas. And I had 3 of my people on the tour this time were from San Antonio. So we kind of got a kick out of that. But you're right. Yes, they have the lampstand, the lavers, the incense burners. They have the menorah, which is under glass, right in the heart of the Jewish quarter in Jerusalem. And they're ready to rock and roll. And this is their cause. And so we went through their tour. They think it's going to, this is just my opinion. They think it's going to bring world peace. Personally, I believe it would be the start of World War III.
Yeah.
So,
do you believe, according to Scripture, that the literal temple will be rebuilt?
To me, the literal temple, which is the coming of the Messiah and the second coming of Jesus Christ, to me is the restoring of the nation of Israel. That the nation itself is the holy temple. And now that I believe we are on the clock regarding end times. But yeah, I mean, if it is the temple, then we've gotten no closer to doing that since 1948 when the nation of Israel was reestablished, or in 1967, in the summer of 67, after the 6-Day War, when Jerusalem was back into Israeli hands, which it still is to this day. So we're no closer to that. To me, I believe we are on the clock.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the baptizing. I saw on this trip you actually there were a couple different baptisms, or people were doing a couple baptisms.
Well, we did the one, which is, and I don't want to blow over this site because I have had people, Jessica, that have been on this trip for no other reason than to get water baptized in the Jordan River. All the other stuff's great, and I'm part of the team. I'll check it out, but the sole numero uno reason I am on your trip, Pastor Adam, is to get water baptized. I've had numerous people tell me this. So I always take it very soberly, and it usually ends day 2 or 3 in the Sea of Galilee area. We go to a place called Yardenit, which is kind of the mouth of the Jordan River coming out of the Sea of Galilee. Again, it's not where Jesus was baptized by John, which that says beyond the wilderness. So it would have been much further south of that. There are 2 traditional sites of that if you're interested. One's in Jordan. You could Wikipedia it and look those up. But because we're staying in Tiberias, as you know, we use, and they're a great facility, have a great gift shop, and a little coffee stand out there. And they have little amphitheaters built right onto the water's edge that you can do a little teaching and do this. This trip was interesting because I always have another ordained minister, it seems, on
Yeah, we
every
had
trip.
Mark was with us last
Right.
time.
And I always say for stuff like this, I need help. I'm no spring chicken anymore, and to baptize, pull 52 people up and out of the water when it's about 95 degrees after a long day of touring, it can be a bit taxing on me. But I'm in for a nickel, I'm in for a dime with this. But so Ted, one of our members, said, Pastor, if you need help, I said, come on in. So me and Ted were doing it, and we were kind of a little prophesying over them before they got into the water. Well, a group of about 40 Colombians, all between about the ages of 21 and 28, were there. They were from Medellin and a few from Cartagena, and they were there on a business exchange program. And I guess at breakfast that morning, they kind of hijacked their trip by telling their guide, when we're done with our classes, we want to go get water baptized in the River Jordan. Well, the guide said, well, I'm no clergyman. I'm not even a rabbi. I cannot do that. And they're like, that's no problem. Just take us. We'll figure it out. Well, they came and they walked 3 or 4 of the amphitheaters and saw different groups doing it. And they kept thinking, no. Well, they got to ours. And literally, Jessica, they got into our line without even asking. So Ted and me made eye contact. I'm like, our line is growing.
So that's like 100 people.
Yes. So, and I looked at Ted and we both smiled. And we actually did have a little appointment that we needed to wrap up, but we both looked at one another and said, this is awesome. It's totally God. And so we baptized all of these Colombians. At the end of it, one of them proposed to his girlfriend right on the river shore. So the place just erupted when she said yes, and it was just a wonderful time. Was I tired that night? Absolutely, but I slept so good. We were the answer to 40 Colombian kids' prayer that morning that wanted to get water baptized. So maybe one of them they spoke perfect English. That was it. And if one of you are listening out there, I gave you my information at Jubilee Bridge, Pastor Adam Burnell. Contact me. I owe you a baptismal certificate.
That's right.
So these are the little things that you never expect that can happen. I would think outside of getting baptized in the River Jordan, again, I don't want my tours just to be looking at old things. I want you to experience. Another thing to experience, and that you did as well, is we do a boat ride on the Sea of Galilee. And it's kind of, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. It's kind of trippy thinking I'm out here where so many of these stories, where so many things happen. I mean, he called the disciples from the shoreline of the Sea of Galilee. Of course, calming the storm,
It's a fairly large body of water.
It is 39 miles round trip. It's
there can be white caps.
Absolutely.
Pretty
if
choppy.
you wanted to go from like at 12 o'clock and drive all the way, and there's a road, you can go all the way around it. It takes you like 46, 47 minutes.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a big body of water. So, but when I start thinking of all the things, even some obscure little stories, like Jesus and the disciples had no money to pay taxes. And he tells one of them, go catch a fish. And inside the fish, they find what they've owed in taxes in the mouth of the fish. I don't know. It is something that the air feels a little different. The wind. There's something about that body of water. That's the one place when I'm over there, I get up every morning. I told a bunch of the team, I know we're jet lagged. I know we're a little tired, but get up 15, 20 minutes before sunrise because the sun pops up over the Golan Heights and you can't really see any human structures. And I always remind myself, this is pretty much the view.
Right. You're looking at the same things.
The same thing that he would have looked at, the 12 would have looked at. Mary Magdalene would have, she's from Magdala, right there. All of them would have had this almost the same exact view as the sun pops over the Golan. And then when the rays of sun hit the water, I think it's magical. So we had about 12, 15 of us. We were waving at each other from our balconies in our hotel room. I did have one member, Albert. You know Albert. He travels everywhere with a shofar. So he blew the shofar at sunrise, which was kind of magical.
Mm.
Unless you were sleeping in the
Yeah.
room next to him, it was not so magical. So we did get a few calls to the security at the, but you know. So anyway, that's another thing that I want to experience. And but we also this year, my wife led a team through Hezekiah's Tunnel, which is in Jerusalem, built by King Hezekiah. It's still there. It's how they brought water while the Babylonians put them under siege, how he brought water into the city from the Gihon Spring from outside of the city walls. And it's still got water flowing through it. And on the spur of the moment, my wife and about 4 or 5 individuals just did baptisms with running water in Hezekiah's Tunnel. So that's another thing. It's up to about your knees, your thighs, the water level. But they walked it. I did the dry tunnel, which is interesting. They cannot carbon date this tunnel, the dry tunnel. They know it is older than Hezekiah's because Hezekiah's used the dry tunnel and went below it to use gravity to bring more water in. So how old? This is long before Jebusites controlled Jerusalem. Some say it goes all the way back to the time of Abraham, but can't confirm that or not, but fascinating.
When people think about baptisms, I think most often we think one and done or whatever. And here we're talking about multiple baptisms and maybe even going back again and getting baptized again. And what is the baptism ceremony represent to the believer?
Well, he does say in regards to communion, as often as you do this. So that implies repetitive. I think an argument could be made that there's one baptism. Mm-hmm. All right. However, I want you to experience, because there ain't no baptism like this baptism.
No, there isn't.
And it's special. So I've been doing other things. I don't know how scriptural, and maybe I'm going to ruffle a feather too, but I'll do married couples together.
Yeah. That was really cool.
Yeah.
I remember that.
You know, a lot of them because I have a photographer there, and get your photo, blow it up. I got invited to a dinner one time in San Ramon, and when we went there, the couple had been with me in 2013 on a Israel trip, and right over their fireplace is their picture coming up out of the water together in the River Jordan. I thought, I didn't even know they did this, but I thought, what a great piece for this room. So yeah, it's very, very, very special. Or we did have a few children on this trip whose parents were also on the trip. So I had Ted jump out of the line, baptize your son. So Chris Flores took advantage of that with Noah, and I got to do that with Hannah, and there was a few others as well. So that was, maybe new wrinkles on it. Again, I want you to experience something that you just can't experience at home.
Speaking of experiences, I know one of the most powerful moments for us was getting to go to the Holocaust Museum for us, it was at the end of our trip. I think it was like maybe even the last day. And I remember hearing Asher talking about how every Israeli has to go visit
Yad Vashem,
and as part of their schooling, so that they can never forget what happened there.
Right.
I'm assuming also. I actually saw pictures that you guys went to the
museum. We
museum
do it.
Again.
Yeah. I've had people say, "Well, do we have to do it?" Well, you don't have to do anything if you don't want to. But I always put it on the itinerary because it's one of the few things that we can do that speaks more to modern times. Mm-hmm. We're looking at so many things that are BC or first century, time of Jesus, even Crusaders 1,000 years ago. But this is 20th century. We still have folks alive who lived through these times. So it's funny, when they first opened it, I was not a big fan of it. It was very dark and ominous. And some of the sites were they're overwhelming. I don't want to get too graphic, but kids' coats with bullet holes and... Well, they changed it. And it's funny, on this trip, I learned one of the reasons they did change it was because in 1999, the Holocaust Museum opened in Washington, D.C. And they were embarrassed because they knew the one in D.C. was better than theirs. But yet we're the Jewish nation. We're Israel. Yeah. How could this be? So they revamped it. And you've seen the revamped one. I like it. It speaks more to, yes, it was horrible, but through all of this horrible time, look what we accomplished.
Yeah, I liked how we walked through a timeline of how it started through it, and then at the end when they open up the big, and then
you walk
brought
through
to the
big bay
balcony
windows,
and
and this beautiful view of modern Israel, trees and the hills in
the future.
the future, absolutely. And today, that story is kind of their modern Purim. The holiday of Purim to Jews is to celebrate Queen Esther saving her people from genocide. Well, there would be no modern Israel without a modern Purim, where Jews had to be saved and had the Zionistic thinking of one day returning back to their homeland. So yes, that is another one. It's funny, my mother went on this trip, which blows my mind. But of all the sites we went to, that was her favorite. And then I had a mother with two sons, Terry Beckett and her two boys. When the tour was over about 4:30, everybody's got a little free time, dinner's not till about 7. They actually had the bus driver take them back, and because the museum was open till 6, and they stayed till it ended. So, yeah, it does speak to you.
Well, in Psalm 122, 6 through 9, it says, "Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. They shall prosper that love thee. Peace be within thy walls and prosperity within thy palaces. For my brethren and companions' sakes, I will now say, peace be with thee. Because the house of the Lord our God, I will seek thy good." Why do you think that he says, pray for the peace of Jerusalem?
Because peace has been so hard for Jerusalem to find. And ironically, Jerusalem means city of peace, Jeru Shalom. How ironic, there's been very little. This is another reason why I think within the near future, if you've ever had the desire to go, you got to go. The political climate's never going to be perfect, but for the most part, you were there.
Yeah.
You feel safe.
You feel safe.
You
Absolutely.
Feel safe. There's cities in America I wouldn't let tour members go out on their own, but I do it in Jerusalem, and I certainly do it in Tiberias. And they have very little tolerance for nonsense. So be that as it may, but it's fairly safe. The airline, there's direct flights. You should, because nothing's guaranteed. And in fact, if you read the book of Revelation, the final battle is Armageddon, which is Megiddo. Megiddo is part of modern day Israel. So it kind of prophesies that there is going to be a terrible calamity, but that's in the future. Now is the now. We have a tendency to put off these things. I'm trying to encourage you, and I'm not selling a trip. I don't have any dates in the future. I have no incentive of doing that. I'm just trying to encourage folks that if you have this desire, you need to act on it. It is totally possible. It's within your means. If you saved, I don't know, $25 a day within 2 years, you could certainly go and just have the time of your life. And it's not, you can go to Hawaii or you can go to Mexico and hang out and do blah, blah, blah. But this is actually going to enrich your life. This can enrich your soul. Every time you see a Bible story in a television show or a movie, or you're reading a passage, you'll be like, I sat there. I was there where he preached to the Mount of Beatitudes, the Sermon on the Mount. I was there where he multiplied the loaves and the fishes. I was there at the synagogue in Capernaum where he stood and he preached. And we can keep going down the line. If you're a believer, it truly is something.
Yeah, I can remember when we went to the place in the temple, and you can kind of see the outline where they would have stood, and thinking about how Jesus stood there and opened the book and said, "This is, the Spirit has come upon me," and that was just.
Yeah, she's referring to the synagogue in Capernaum. It's one of the few places on planet Earth that you can say beyond a shadow of a doubt, he stood right here.
Yeah.
Because when the Bible says he walked by the Galilee, well, the Galilee's huge. Which
where
is it underwater now? What was the water level then? We don't know.
Yeah.
You can't pinpoint. Even in Jerusalem, because it's been leveled and destroyed so many times up until the Crusader times, that many of the sites are, this might be the site where this whatever happened. Very few. In fact, there's 2 different Golgothas. There's about 6 different Canas, where water turned to wine. But the synagogue in Capernaum, all 4 Gospels explicitly say he spoke at the synagogue there. And then the synoptics say he went and healed Peter's mother-in-law right when he was finished. Well, if you're the speaker of a synagogue, the benches are still there from the first century. The floor is there from the first century. And they will show you when you were the speaker where you had to stand, because it's not like an audience seating that they are surrounding you. So I always have the group. I don't say this, but I'll be like, so-and-so, stand right here. You are literally standing where he stood.
Yeah. On
the floor, literally, that he stood. So that is a highlight for me, a highlight site. It's one of the few places on planet Earth.
In our travels when we were through Israel, you were describing a little bit about how they excavate, and as they excavate, they go down and they find the layers of. Like, I remember when we went to where the loaves and the fishes, and like you said, that you can go down to first BC or the Crusades, and you can find. So it seems like when you have these archaeological sites, there's a constant excavating, finding the city of David, and then there's also the new buildings and the new growth, and so it's almost like it's a continuous cycle of. No,
it's a nightmare for contractors in Jerusalem, because if you dig anywhere, you're going to dig up at something. The site of the loaves and fishes is called Tagba, and when you go in there, there's a mosaic from the Byzantine, which is when Romans became Christians, probably 4th century, the 300s, of a basket of loaves and fishes, which is pretty cool, and it's a great photo opportunity. But then they have in the floor a window that you can look down, and in the window you can see the floor from the first church. This has got to be the floor, maybe one of the oldest churches on planet Earth. It's 1st century. Well, 1st century, there was, Christianity was in its infancy. The Apostle John would have been still alive, right? I mean, when you start putting it into those perspectives. Currently, which was fun, the Pool of Siloam is the big dig right now in Jerusalem. In fact, they have a little YouTube page you can go. I go on it once a week, especially since we were going to be standing next to it. Showing what they have found and whatnot. And while we were there, they were excavating it and actually found 2 things. Some of the folks were taking pictures. But in the Galilee, the hot dig right now is Magda, Mary Magdalene's hometown.
Wow. And
they have found a much larger synagogue than even the one in Capernaum. And that's the current dig. So you can go on the IAA website, which is the Israeli Antiquities Authority, and
do
they
these
update
things just sink? Do they get covered by sand? How is it that they're below the
Usually
surface?
They get built upon because it's the best foundations. And this is what you start making something called a tell, T-E-L, which is layer upon layers. The biggest tell in the world is at Megiddo. And they can find, I don't know, what they say, 23 different civilization layers built upon.
And that's the same Megiddo as Armageddon?
Yes,
that's
the same one.
Wow.
It's right in the heart of central Israel, flat land. All travelers would have come through this area. So it's always had prominence, either for trade or defense, what have you. Solomon built one of the gate cities that the Bible talks about was Megiddo. So that's kind of crazy. Even the city called Tel Aviv, even in its name, is telling you, no pun intended, it's telling you that it has layers. You walk around the modern layer, but you go down 3-4 feet, you're going to find a new layer of a civilization. And obviously, how do you date these things? Obviously, with pottery or carbon dating, if it's organic. Or if it has patina growing on it or what have you. But yes, there's all these. So you can imagine, let's say you get a big contract in Jerusalem for housing development. That's the joke. Nothing's ever on time because you dig down and you have to call it. If you don't, you've broken a major law, a felony in Israel. And the IAA comes out and they have to determine if they want to remove it, if you can continue, if you cannot continue, this is way too prominent. In fact, there's a new subway that's supposed to go in, and you can go online and look at this. This kind of fascinates me. They have truly found the pilgrimage road. This would have been the road that Joseph and Mary would have been walking on when Jesus was lost, especially from the north. They have found this pilgrim road now, and but it has put a massive halt on what was supposed to be this huge project. So when I was there, I was kind of like, well, how long have they halted it for? And they were like 14 months currently. But they are fascinated, and you can go looking for pictures on it. They are fascinated on what they have found on that. And to think of who's walked on that over time, it's incredible.
So geographically speaking, if you're listening to this, they're listening audio. Geographically speaking, is there just not that much land that they could have expanded? Like, why do they keep building and building and building? Is Jerusalem, is Israel surrounded by mountains? Is it surrounded by water? What's keeping it so condensed in this one area?
I think when you build up, you're lifting yourself higher. You're making yourself your new city to be a citadel, which has, number one, it's easier to collect water. Number two, it's better for defense against enemies. Number three, it's much easier to regulate trade coming in and coming out because there's only one or two ways in up on a hill and whatnot. So yes, it would always have major advantages. Plus, if you're building on an ancient society using their stones, if then you don't have to build a foundation. You can just completely build upon that. So it's cost effective. So some people even think that really, and you've seen them, they're human-made mountains. Mm-hmm. Check out Herodium. This is another hot dig. This is Herod's funeral temple, which he named after himself. Didn't know where it was until the 1990s. Finally found it because it looked like a natural hill, but it's not a natural hill. It's a completely man-made hill, and that's what a tell is. All these civilizations. Some tells, which aren't being used anymore, look like mountains. So could this been part of the thing when Jesus said, say to this mountain, be moved? Herod literally moved a mountain of earth and created his own mountain. And you see man-made mountains dotted all over the Holy Land. You don't see them much in other places. In the Middle East you do, and a few places in Turkey, but it seems to be mainly the ancient civilizations of Semitic peoples.
Speaking of mountains, how was your trip to Masada? Well,
it was 99 degrees, so I needed a sweater. That's got to be the coolest I've ever had on the top of the Masada. I think it was the hottest when you were with me. It was scorching that day. It was nice. It's in case you don't know, Masada is a man-made garrison on top of a mountain that sits by itself. And it's not a story in the Bible, but it plays a prominent role in biblical times. And the only writing about it is from the ancient historian Josephus, who details a lot about it, because it's where, after the fall of Jerusalem, were 900 zealots. One of Jesus' disciples was called Simon the Zealot. These were people that wanted to overthrow the Romans. Well, it failed, and it failed miserably. But they had always known that Herod had created this palace out in the middle of nowhere, thinking, when you know what hit the fan, this is where Herod was going to run to. There's no way of getting up to this mountain from the floor without you've seen it, easily to defend. Well, when they got there, they went up there. The Romans surrounded it. You can still see the Roman camps on all sides of the mountain when you're on top. You can still see their siege wall that goes all the way around. Nobody was getting in. Nobody was getting off. This had been a tactic called siege warfare that the Romans had pretty much perfected and had used effectively throughout Europe, throughout Asia, the Mediterranean. Well, it's not going to work here because Herod had built water cisterns that could have filled, 30 Olympic-sized swimming pools. They're huge. So the Jews who hid on top of the mountain had so much water, Jessica, to taunt the Romans, because you're out by the Dead Sea, one of the most inhospitable places on the planet. they hung their laundry out to dry so the Romans could see this. So the Romans changed their tactics. I'm fascinated with Masada because you had these religious zealots who had such a strong mindset, freedom or die.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the floor, on the valley floor, you had the Romans who had a mindset, job accomplished or death.
Mm-hmm.
And you see these two massively strong-willed ideologies happening at Masada. In case you don't know, the Romans had no way to get on top of this 1,300-foot mountain. So you know what they did? They built a ramp out of earth. They moved a mountain.
Mm-hmm.
It's still there. And when they finally broke through, they realized the Jews had committed mass suicide. Mm-hmm. And they left writings, according to Josephus, stating that it'd be better to be in the hands of God than to be a slave to Rome.
Mm-hmm.
So to Jews to this day, Masada has great importance. It's kind of their Statue of Liberty. It means freedom. It's also kind of their Alamo, Last Stand. It's kind of their Pearl Harbor, right? So it's up until recently, if you were become an officer in, I believe, the Israeli Air Force, you had to take your vow on top of Masada. And in Hebrew, you would say, Masada will never fall again. So it plays a very prominent role. Interesting, this trip, because you saw the little movie they show that details it. But if they all committed suicide, how do we have the prayer of Eliezer? There's this very long, detailed prayer that Josephus has written down in antiquity. How did he have this source? It always makes me scratch my head. Not to say he made it up, but if they all committed suicide, how do we have such details of this story? So food for thought on that.
Good question. Good question. Well, for the love of Israel, it's definitely, when you go there, you feel the peace. It's definitely a misnomer that maybe, I don't know if media just blows it out of proportion to a fear tactic to keep people from visiting, but there's certainly our brothers and sisters.
Oh, and they love Americans.
And they love
Americans. You will get hugs and kisses on the cheek. And they will even tell you, without you, we would not exist for a month. Yeah. So, and I respect that. So I know we're getting close. Let me just say this. More than just a want to, some of you need to have a resolve and tell yourself, you know what, in these next 2-4 years, I got to get there. I got to make a pilgrimage. I got to represent my family. I need to put my prayer in the Western Wall with all the other prayers. I need to feel that water. I need to be baptized in that water. I need to breathe that air. I need to be inspired through all my senses spiritually of what God wants to do in my life. These are the reasons I love Israel. Because more than going to a conference and hearing just another sermon, I'm not mad at anybody, and I do a sermon weekly, so more than going to a retreat and feeling in tune with something, these little things come and go. Nothing wrong with them. They're nice. But when you go there, stuff that will stay with you for a lifetime, get on you.
And there's no resistance towards Christians. There's no animosity. I mean, even our guide and the guides that we have had are not Christians, right. But they know they're taking a group of Christians to see the sights of Jesus. They have no problems with that. And if you were to go by yourself and not be attached to a group, I'm sure you could pick up a pamphlet or a book and find a million different sites of Christ that you could go and see and be a part of.
But you're just looking at them. At times they have a guide to walk you through a little bit, to show you things. I preach, you and me preach out of the Bible almost on a weekly basis, if not more. But to see little things that were like, oh, that's what that means.
That's what that plant looks like.
Exactly. Or, I was showing hyssop plants growing out of walls, and people are like, that's hyssop. I'm like, it's little stuff coming alive. And it makes the scriptures come alive. And my whole point in being a Bible communicator is to make the scriptures come alive in you. And more than a sermon, go walk a sermon. Go be where it happened. Let's be honest. There's something about going where something started.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a tennis fan. And doggone it, one of these days I'm going to go to Wimbledon, which is kind of the cathedral of. I could go to the U.S. Open, and I love it, or the Roland Garros, or any of the other. But man, there's something about where something started it. I was with some big country western fans, and we were in Memphis, and they wanted to go to Sun Studios. I didn't know anything about it. But when I see pictures of Johnny Cash and Elvis Presley and Jerry Lee Lewis, Sam Phillips, the owner, and my God, you could say rock and roll came out of country, rockabilly came out of this little room. I stood there, or to go to Motown. And what a tiny, I don't know if you've ever been there in Detroit. It's a tiny little house, but to think, Aretha and Smokey, the Temptation, Diana Ross, came out of this little thing. There's something about going to look at something where it all began. Well, there's nothing more that all began than our faith. And to me, that is why Jerusalem is so important. And let me just close with this. There's something I enjoy in the Sea of Galilee area. I love Tiberias. It's very relaxing. It's kind of their vacation land. But there's something about Jerusalem. I know it's chaotic. I know it's noisy. The streets are ancient, so there's barely enough room for cars. But there's something about Jerusalem. And it dawned on me, Jerusalem is the only thing outside of a born-again believer that gets to have a new experience, a heavenly experience. Because the last page of your Bible says there will be a new Jerusalem, like a pearl, right? And in essence, it gets born again. And when I was there, they always tell us, remember, this is the navel to the world. This is where God imparted things. This is where God sent his angels. This is where God spoke to prophets. This is where God had kings anointed. This is where God sent his only beloved son. So there's something about going to the navel of faith, and you can only do that by going to Jerusalem.
Amen. Well, I'm excited. I can't wait till we have another. I know you just got back and not thinking next year, but whenever the next trip is, we should definitely, everyone.
And hopefully you can go with us. So life is short. You got to enjoy it.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into this special episode of Ask Adam for the Love of Israel. And we look forward to answering your questions in our next episode, Ask Adam Plus. Have an awesome rest of your week, guys.
God bless.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Ask Adam. We're so glad that you tuned in, liked, subscribed, shared, and did all the things on all the various platforms that you can to support this message. If you'd like to come to one of our services, we have Wednesday night services at 7:30 p.m., except for the first Wednesday of the month, which is a special start time at 7 p.m. for dinner, as well as a time for worship before the message. Our address is 685 Jarvis Drive, Suite D, in Morgan Hill, California, 95037. Our phone number is area code 408-431-5551, and our website is www.jubileebridge.church. We also have an app, the Jubilee Bridge Morgan Hill app, that you can download on your iPhone. And if you would like to reach out to us to submit any questions, you can please feel free to do it via social media or the website so that Pastor Adam can answer your questions accordingly. Thank you for listening. We look forward to seeing you here in service and online. God bless.